we're going to have a very informal program today. We're going to start with some music from Eileen and Mark, and then we're going to move into some comments. And anyone who would like to make comments will be invited up. You're welcome to say something. Are you ready? Are we running? We're rolling? We're good. Okay. All right. Well, Eileen and Mark, I'll let you get started.
I'm really emotional, and the bow is shaking. Mic here, but I hope you can hear me. That was a tune called Banish Misfortune. Not chosen necessarily for the title, but the next tune I'm going to play is called Crow in the Sun. My son and I both had a real affinity for crows and ravens. I think some of his friends knew that, and so this is Crow in the Sun.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And obviously Eileen is Isaac's mom. I think you all know that, but I didn't say it before. I wanted to invite Sarah Rivera up to read a poem.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah. Eileen asked me to share a poem with you all. Eileen was my violin teacher growing up, but I didn't get to know Isaac until college when he was in town from Prescott and wanted to go on a hike with someone. And when we made our plans, I was like, wow, we chose like a 4-hour hike. I hope we have something to talk about. But then, of course, with Isaac, it was so natural. Like, it was natural if you were talking for an hour or if you were just quiet, walking through the landscape. From then on, we talked about books together and we went to concerts together. And I was telling my husband the other day that before a concert, Isaac and I would talk about our favorite songs by a particular band. And then when that song was playing, one of my favorite songs, I would catch him like watching me listen to the song instead of watching the band. And I thought it was so sweet wanting to, see how someone else experienced their favorite song. So he was just so kind, and every moment with him was special. So I actually have 2 short poems. One that I wrote for Isaac, partially after a car ride we had together years ago, partially now, and then a short one by another poet that's, I think, more for all of us. So this is called Resound for Isaac, with a line from Neutral Milk Hotel. What if on that same highway, the whole city skirting east, you could become a sound, lost for hours, the echo dusk, the canyon of your mind filling in everything that might have been written. Our time fragments together, yellow, white, star-dusted black, heaps of bare grass, but I suspend us in a single car ride. You were driving the Tacoma. To me, it was always as if you had walked up from dewed shadow, from another story of the world. And when you talked pecan trees, points of intersection where deserts meet, it was like hearing names reinvented. I want to believe now that you can see in multiplicities, the ultimate fire tower, that you can see this controlled burn, ours, and as everything blackens, seedlings spill from a rust-colored pine cone, breach the smoke, and grow. You become a progressive tense, alive in a memory as in the juncture of a moment, a new pattern of listening to hear where you are, to hear the music of a wind current moving west over water. This is Elegy by Araceli Skirme. What to do with this knowledge that our living is not guaranteed? Perhaps one day you touch the young branch of something beautiful, and it grows and grows, despite your birthdays and the death certificate, and it one day shades the heads of something beautiful, or makes itself useful to the nest. Walk out of your house then, believing in this. Nothing else matters. All above us is the touching of strangers and parrots, some of them human, some of them not human. Listen to me, I am telling you a true thing. This is the only kingdom, the kingdom of touching, the touches of the disappearing things.
Eileen's going to start out with some remarks.
I'm going to try to talk. Isaac was my son. He was my greatest teacher and my friend. His loss is immeasurable, incomprehensible. I've struggled these past weeks to find words to honor his life. Isaac was complex, multifaceted. I could share so much about him, that he loved rivers, music, maps, and wild places. That his curiosity and his knowledge were vast. On recent hikes with me, he discussed maritime law and the roots of various languages at length. But that is really only a part of the beautiful whole. I've heard it said that as we contemplate our own deaths, and we will die, the most important question is, how did we love? Isaac loved with great attention, devotion, humor, and curiosity. His love was open, accepting, unconditional. His life and love are gifts. He touched so many of us. I am comforted to know that his love lives on in so many of our hearts. It is with immense love and gratitude that I honor and celebrate Isaac's life with you.
Like all of you, I'm sure, I am still reeling from the loss of this beautiful young man who was very much in the prime of life, in the thick of living. It is so hard to fathom that he's gone, and I'm sure it will take a long time to really sink in. Isaac and I were very close. When he was 3 years old, I moved across the country from New York. I was headed to a new life and a new career as a filmmaker in California, with plans to stay in Albuquerque for several months to help my brother Larry set up his law practice, and to work on a screenplay, of course, before moving to Los Angeles. With such a momentous life transition, I decided to take a cross-country trip that lasted 3 days, and I rented a sleeper car in the train. When I got to Albuquerque, my family picked me up from the train station, and we went to dinner. I recounted my adventures on the train and then was working out arrangements with my brother to buy his car to use during my time during Albuquerque. Isaac, remember he's 3, is following the conversation closely, and he turned to me and said, "Auntie Liz, is your car a sleeping car?" I was just amazed that he put that together. Isaac was dedicated to family, and he showed up for people, visiting his maternal grandmother when she was working on the Caribbean island of Dominica, showing up for Passover with my mother in Los Angeles when she was ill with terminal cancer. He practically carried her down the steps of my apartment to go to her doctor's appointment when she was too weak to make it on her own. He came out to Los Angeles 4 years ago to help me pack up my apartment when I got married. We spent 5 days packing, and in the evenings I'd take him out for a nice meal and we'd talk. One night we went out for sushi, and Isaac told me about his interest in anime and desire to visit Japan. And of course, he was completely devoted to his father, my brother Larry, as his companion and caregiver. For years, when they had to go somewhere, Isaac helped Larry with the arduous process of traveling in Larry's Toyota Corolla, before finally deciding to get him a comfortable, accessible van that he could drive his wheelchair into and out of. It was a months-long process to find the right vehicle. And my last text from Isaac in late April was simply an exuberant, "We have a van." It was a triumph for both of them. We had so many adventures together. When I came to Albuquerque, we'd go hiking in the mountains. In fact, we hiked here, or by the Bosque, and he'd fill me in on all the flora and fauna we were seeing. The biggest adventures were the 2 rafting trips I went on with him, one with Larry and another longer group trip when he was a river guide on the Colorado River out of Moab, and it was unforgettable. Last September, my husband Dennis and I went with Isaac to see the burning of the Zozobra in Santa Fe. Isaac was a fierce rival in our family game of cribbage, and he usually won. But it was always a triumph to beat him. And Isaac had strong opinions about a lot of things. On one of many visits to a Vietnamese restaurant in Albuquerque, he launched on a diatribe about how inferior jalapeno peppers were to other spicier peppers. But ever since then, whenever Dennis and I encounter jalapenos in a restaurant, we turn to each other and say, Isaac would not approve. I've had too much experience with grief and loss, but one thing someone said to me has helped me navigate on especially bad days. It's this: the depth of the hole left by such a profound loss always stays as deep, but the perimeter gets smaller. It's my hope that in time, the perimeter will get smaller for all of us. And similar to what Eileen said, after the loss, what's left is love. And Isaac had so much love to share. There's enough to go around. Andrew, did you want to come up and... This is Andrew Leshin, Isaac's cousin. His father is Larry's brother, Randy.
Hi, everyone. Just a few words from my father and my mother who were unable to attend today. You didn't need to know Isaac well to sense the kindness and sweetness that radiated from him like an aura, which was always there. I'm his uncle, but distance had kept me from spending more time with him. I've always regretted that, now more than ever. Julie and I are inexpressibly sad and shocked by this loss. We hope that Big Eye has found peace and that his aura still radiates kindness and sweetness from wherever it may be. With love and sorrow, Randy and Julie. And then I wrote just a couple quick words as well. I always understood that myself and Isaac were kindred spirits to a degree, sharing certain qualities. He was undoubtedly a Leshin man. Like me, his father Larry, my father Randy, and our grandfather Jack, he definitely had an affinity for adventure and a bit of mischief. I always loved that he was a river raft instructor for so many years of his life. Not sitting in an office or typing away on a computer, but just getting out there and being a part of nature every day, riding those giant currents, sun beaming, waves splashing, living life, not waiting for it to come to him. There's something very cool about that, and I know he loved that chapter. I'd like to express my deepest condolences today to my Uncle Larry, Eileen, and all of Isaac's extended family and friends. Thank you.
I'd like to give other family members the opportunity to come up if there are any family members who want to speak. Okay. Eric Ortiz was a guy who worked with my brother and also worked with Isaac, and Isaac went to work for him after he left. And he sent some remarks, which my husband Dennis is going to read.
This is Eric Ortiz. Isaac was my friend and employee for almost a decade. I live in California and am in a clinical program and unfortunately cannot make it to Albuquerque this weekend. I met Isaac while working together for his father, Larry, in 2011. Isaac ended up working for my law firm and was my right-hand man for many years. Isaac was my anxious after-hours phone call. Isaac remembered the birthdays, solved people's personal problems, and brought an understated confidence to his work. Isaac had a knack for a creative solution. Isaac appreciated the quirky, the abnormal, and his infectious laugh could make the painful funny and the uncomfortable an adventure. I ultimately gave up my career in law to become a therapist. Isaac helped make that possible. I tried to embody his non-judgmental appreciation of humanity in my new career. Isaac made the world a better place. I love you, Isaac. You are missed.
Erin, did you want to come up and make some remarks? This is Isaac's good friend, Erin, and she'll share some comments.
I'll see if I can hold it together. Isaac and my husband, Nick, met a month before we came together as friends. And since then, we have always been a fixture in each other's lives. Nick and Isaac shared an unforgettable experience exploring the Grand Canyon and superstitions during their wilderness orientation backpacking trip at Prescott College. We had so many great memories from Prescott, exploring nature, getting into debates, being rambunctious college kids. I will forever fondly remember Isaac's bouncy house and cocktail party themed birthday. It was the perfect metaphor for Isaac's unique personality. He and I especially bonded at school over our coursework in organizational development and ended up graduating together in December of 2019. We stayed in touch, and when Nick and I were floundering, trying to determine what was next for us after leaving Arizona, Isaac gave us refuge in Albuquerque and the means and support we needed to get back on our feet. I will never forget the way he really showed up for us at that moment in our lives. He helped us find jobs, grow a community, and find our path in the city we now call home and love. We ended up living together for 4 years, which is crazy when you think about it. There aren't many friends in the world that you can tolerate living together for so long. And it really demonstrated how much we loved and supported each other. Our friendship was always strong, but in those years living together, we grew a bond, more like family than friends. We went on so many amazing adventures, road trips, hikes, and to concerts and festivals together. Every time I visit San Lorenzo Canyon, Isaac will always be there in spirit. But we also settled into the mundane, grocery shopping, doing yard work, watching TV, complaining about work, and going through everyday life moments together. Our friendship with Isaac was truly foundational to our lives. He was always the person you can call on to go on a spontaneous adventure, and he would show up prepared for anything. I'm so grateful that Isaac got to join us for one last adventure as one of our very few guests who joined us for a week in Mexico to be with us for our wedding. I will cherish those memories and time to celebrate together forever. Losing Isaac has been hard, and there's no doubt that I'm still in shock at this great loss. And knowing that I won't be able to call up or catch up with my chosen brother again. Sorry. Isaac was brilliant, curious, and loving. We could debate for hours or go down a rabbit hole playing with magnets or researching some random curiosity, and always have the best time just being. He was one of those friends you could genuinely be yourself with without the slightest fear of judgment. I'm grateful that we have a daily reminder of my friend, knowing that his spirit, kindness, and love lives on in his little dog Lola. But I have also found great solace in reconnecting and reminiscing with Isaac's friend and his family, and remembering how much Isaac impacted and deeply loved so many in his short life. So thank you all for being here. We love you, Isaac. Thank you for being that fixture in our lives and the best of friends. You will forever live on in Lola, in our memories, and in our hearts. Thank you.
I wanted to open things up for anyone else who might like to make remarks.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. I've been to a couple of these this year, and it's always like this very bittersweet thing of seeing all these people here that we all have one very special thing in common. But I'm also getting like really tired of having to meet people this way. And if there's one thing we can do after this, it would be to I'm asking you guys to reach out to his family. Liz, Larry, Eileen, Patrick, his cousins, his uncles, and just call them. And, if there's some way, if when we're done here, if you want to exchange phone numbers, but just to share a few stories of Isaac and what he meant to you. And I think to, not even just like weeks after, but months and years later, call his parents and say hi and check in with them. I met Isaac when I was probably this tall. I went to preschool with him. And, me and another friend here, Max, used to play with Isaac. And Isaac insisted on like order. And he wanted to, Max and I would be like, you want to play robbers? And he's like, no, I want to have a shop. And so he would like take different colors of yarn and hang them on a wall and like organize books. And Max and I would go in his shop and destroy everything and steal his books. And he would bring an abacus from home, and when we would leave, he would just order everything again and put it all back on the walls. And he never wanted to play like robbers. He's like, no, I'll just clean up. And then there were periods in my life where I didn't see Isaac for all of elementary school because we went to schools that were maybe like 2 miles apart. But then I remember going to middle school and running into Isaac again. And I had a French class with him in 6th grade. And he was such a mischievous little kid. I remember him having he had a Forbes magazine that he was reading in French class. And I remember the teacher, she said you couldn't have outside material, but Isaac was reading a Forbes magazine. What about Isaac? She's like, it's Forbes. And then I sat next to him, and it was just the cover of Forbes magazine over like a penthouse. Got away with it. And then in 7th grade, he got a deficiency notice from the same French teacher. And at lunchtime, the period after that, I said, are you going to give that to your parents? And he took a lighter out of his pocket and lit it on fire. And then he threw it in the garbage can, and that started burning. And I said, do you want to put that out? And he said, fuck it. And this was like this sweet kid. And every parent was like, Isaac? Anyway, we had a break in high school. I went to a private high school, and Isaac went to Albuquerque High for a period before dropping out and getting a GED and going rafting. And then I was telling another friend this story just a few minutes ago of my very first day at UNM. I'm a very anxious person. My first day, my first period, first class ever, I walked into an auditorium with 150 people in it, and I felt small and lost. And I scanned the room, and I saw my friend Jake and Isaac sitting together, and immediately felt comfortable and at home. And that was, for knowing each other as long as we did, that was when our friendship started, really. And Isaac and I went on many hikes and bike rides. And I was part of a very core group of friends with him. And we were just weird and outcasts and funky. And he was my brother. I have a fraternal brother, but we weren't close growing up. And Isaac and I were incredibly close. And we would talk almost weekly. And I was living in Taos for a while, and when I moved back, he and I would go for a bosque walk at least once a week. And I saw Isaac a week before everything happened, and he he just had all these plans for what he was going to do and the trips he was going to take. And he was so passionate about taking care of his mom and his dad and going for hikes and adventures. And I think if moving forward, if we can just, you know, whenever you're out here or you're near the water or listening to some music that Isaac liked, just, you know, look for a butterfly or a hummingbird or a really pretty cloud, and that's Isaac. And that's how I'm choosing to remember him. And thank you guys for being here. Thanks for coming.
Hi, I'm Sam Kudley. I went to Prescott College with Isaac, and something I was just struck by was you're talking about how he would make you feel home. And I remember deciding to volunteer for the student union board. I wasn't sure if I could juggle it with everything else, but it felt like a good learning opportunity. And I would have a lot of bravado, but I wasn't sure I belonged there. And I remember Isaac as our treasurer, and Isaac really had a way of bringing us all back on track, right? When we would all, maybe have the weight of student union board feel like too much, Isaac had the plan. He had the numbers. Thanks to Isaac, our school, which did not have a gymnasium, was able to work out a contract with our local YMCA at a huge savings compared to making our own gym. And that was so, to me, emblematic of the way Isaac would make you feel included in a better plan than you yourself might have come up with. And Isaac was just so generous to the point that it could almost be a trap. If you wanted to just empty your heart and soul to him, he would let you without hinting at any of what was going on with him. He was humble. Isaac could have amazing things to brag about and tell you about, but he wouldn't necessarily offer it freely. I've never met someone who was so reluctant to, brag. You would really have to ask him about these things and be able to put aside your own ego and your own things and just create that space to allow Isaac to fill you in on the amazing things that he would be doing. I was really sad when I lost touch with him after college. We just had a phone number change. He had the good sense not to get on Facebook. And I remember being at the hot air balloon fiesta. I didn't think I'd be able to make it. I was with a partner of mine, and we just had one day where the weather was permitting before we went. And I remember him being with you, Liz. And it was so Isaac to have that keen attention, to yell out from a distance, Sam, Sam. And sure enough, he spotted me, and I don't know that I would have spotted him, and again, that was so Isaac, that attention to detail, that thoughtfulness, and I was so glad to be able to become your friend, Liz, and maintain friendship with you online, but also as you would have that sort of sadness of no longer being in the Southwest, traveling from west to east. I'm in Florida now and would make these trips, and Isaac would make you feel at home. He would make you feel welcome. I don't know that I would have the fondness towards Albuquerque that I have if it weren't for Isaac. And he made it feel like you weren't just having to travel across this wide expanse of country on your own, but that you did have that home in Albuquerque. And it was up to you then to have the good sense to, capitalize on the gift of Isaac and not just tell him about what you were up to, but to really listen and to really give yourself the gift of asking Isaac those questions and allowing him to open up, whether it was spending Thanksgiving out at the Verde Hot Springs, or getting to do those hot air balloon fiesta again with his cherished friends, Nick and Aaron. Every time that you would hang out with Isaac was just such a gift. I remember the last time I came out here in January, and I was feeling sort of sad about not necessarily have some of those connections in other cities with folks. It's hard to have friendships with adults necessarily. And with Isaac, I thought I would see him once, maybe twice, when we were here this Monday through Thursday. And instead, he visited us every night. I didn't expect it. He would, call and we would play Magic the Gathering and just get to veg over all the stuff. And once again, it was up to me to have that good sense to not just blab about myself, but to ask Isaac those questions. And at the time, I was so guilt-ridden for taking that trip with work, but now I'm just so very grateful that I did, and I only wish that I had had more time with him, because he was such a gift and asked us to be our best selves and to not just think about ourselves, but to have an ability to model that emotional curiosity and intellectual curiosity and the patience that he has. We have mutual friends who I don't think I have that necessarily ability to be as good of a listener as he was. And I know that there are mutual friends of ours who view him as their closest and most cherished friend because Isaac would be that person who could listen, who could put aside whatever else and just show up. And I'm always going to miss him, and I'm always going to feel more at home here in Albuquerque because of Isaac. And I would love to stay in touch with folks. I don't just want to keep you, Liz, as a friend forever, but please don't hesitate to talk if you want to share stories about him. And thank you all just for being here and creating this space. It's so easy to just have mourning seem to occur in isolation these last few years, and I know it's helpful for healing that massive hole in my heart from Isaac not being here, to be among so many people who loved him and recognized the gift of Isaac and all the things that he taught us. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Sam.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I just want to continue on with these stories. I got to first meet Isaac at a bus stop. We took the same school bus to Jefferson. I believe it was in 6th or 7th grade, and we were called latchkey kids. So we had from 2:30 to 5:30 to just do whatever we wanted. No parent supervision. And so we would be able to not go on the school bus and walk home sometimes and go visit the salty dogs over there and see what they were up to, skateboarding, making videos, smoking weed, we did that. But those were some of the best times of my life, and I just wanted to share that we just had such a good time in our neighborhood, just having neighborhood friends, and it was just really beautiful. And the first thing that we connected over was actually engines, 2-stroke engines. We were really into the 1950s and classic cars, and I just thought, Isaac Sullivan-Leshin, wow, this is a guy straight from the past. He had a little pompadour, and I was just like, that's my guy. Like this is, I got to know this guy, and we hung out, and it just had so much fun together, and grew up together, and really did our first everything that I could remember. Just our first road trips, hiking, our first. Everything, and Isaac was the smartest person I've ever met, hands down. We had a graffiti crew called the Lucky Boy Mafia, if you all know. And his tag name was Data. That's pretty amazing. And he just knew everything. He just knew something about everything, and he was an encyclopedia. And when we got to high school, he kind of went through his jock phase. He was a football player in freshman year, and I was in the marching band, and I really wanted him to be there, play tuba, but he decided to check out, and be a jock and be a football player. And I remember the day that he dropped out of high school. It was, I think, our junior year. We were signing up for classes, and I was like, Isaac, I'm signing up for these classes. Are you signing up? He's like, yeah, absolutely. I'm in those same ones. I'm like, great. And then school started, and he wasn't there. Like, Isaac, where are you? And He dropped out. He was a manager at a pizza delivery, and he got his own house. So at the age of 17, he was on his own, lived right by UNM, and this guy was so mature, right, to just have a home of his own and invite us there. And we had my other friend Victor was his roommate, and we just had so much fun being ourselves. And I really feel like it just cultivated just a really good sense of self, because we weren't into the mainstream. We were just ahead of our time, in that sense, that we didn't care about what other people thought. We had some crazy ideas. We had a ghost club that I was talking about, where we'd look for ghosts, and we'd wear yarmulkes on our head, and we had our own rules and secret societies, and just really kind of just geek out on so many different things, and especially music. I mean, I'm just thinking about, I'm just looking back at our lives, like we grew up in such a good time. Just thinking about the past 10, 15 years, so many great concerts, so many great music that we listened to. He was a psychonaut, let's just put it out there. He was into expanding his consciousness. And I really believe that. And he was scientific about it, so he would record every experience that he had. And, yeah, so I'll just leave that there. That was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun together. And believe it or not, this is the last place I saw him alive. This is the last time I saw him alive was for another friend of ours, Daniel Pucanota, who also passed away. So this was the last place that I saw him, and was able to go to one last concert with him, Hot Chip. And there's one song in Hot Chip that says, "You're my number one guy," and he was my number one guy. And just want to share, though, what a life he lived. I'm just so grateful to have experienced and had moments with him, and just continue that with you all. So just want to thank you all so much for showing up. It means a lot. And just thank you all. We had so much fun at all your all's houses. Larry, we had so much fun in that garage. We really did. We had a blast. So thank you all so much.
Is there anyone else who'd like to say something?
My name is Judy Amer, and I'm one of the lawyers that Isaac worked with for a few years. And, I don't know him the way that you all know him, but I everything you're saying are things that I would say. And I was lucky enough to be able, for the past 2 or 3 days, to see him virtually or in person, depending on which year, to see him every day, many times a day, and talk to him on the phone all the time. So I feel especially lucky. And I was telling Isaac's parents, who I just met today, that I have a son who was born the same year. And when Isaac came in for his interview, I remember he came in and I was looking at his resume, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he was born in 1987. He's the same age as Luke. And he reminded me so much of my son and his friends. There was just something that was so unique. And then when I got to know Isaac, it was like I had been practicing law for like 30 years, and I began to feel extremely insecure because I'm thinking this young man who hasn't gone to law school knows so much more than I do. But then I realized, oh, this is good. I'm just going to ask him his advice on everything and pick his brain. And I did. And whenever I had like a thorny issue, I would talk to him. And yeah, he was always willing to come up with a creative solution. But it was just more, as people said, his kindness and sweetness and quirkiness, and at our meetings just being able to go off on these totally random tangents. And then when we have these meetings with commissioners, and we would text during the meetings, like kind of funny little comments about things that people at the bigger meeting were saying. And Isaac would always join in, and I look back on those texts and really miss him, and just want to say thank you for having this. And I'm sure Mike could also share stories, but thank you for letting us get to know Isaac.
Would anyone else like to come up and make remarks? Charles. Yeah, you're
I'm shorter than I look. Hi. My connection with this group started about 50 years ago when Isaac's papa, wasn't a papa back then, he and I met in the San Francisco Zen Center. And I would just like for us to take maybe just a minute, nothing long, and just maybe be quiet. And maybe we might say something to Isaac, or just let the space talk to us. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Isaac. We love you, we miss you, and good journeys. Hey.
Anybody else? Now's your chance.
If Charles is going to talk, I have to have the last word.
Let's see. What about between them?
Okay. This was what the space said to me just now, and I'm just going to do it from memory. It's a poem by Raymond Carver. And did you get what you wanted? Even so, yes, I did. And what was that? To be beloved on this earth.
Anybody else? Yes, come on.
Hi, my name is Bryce, and just so many memories of Isaac going through my head today, so trying to narrow it down to what I wanted to share, but him and I met in 5th grade. I think we sat at the same table, and we both had been recently, well, I don't know how recently, but I had been recently prescribed glasses, didn't want to wear them, and if my memory strikes me correctly, Isaac had glasses too, but he didn't want to wear them either. And so we were copying off each other's papers. Neither of us could see the board. And then we eventually figured out what was going on and became friends from then on. And spent so much time together all the way through high school. And in 8th grade, we made the school yearbook together. I don't know how that came to be, but once a week we would spend an hour in our math teacher's office, like formatting this 8th grade yearbook and occasionally inhaling helium out of a helium tank. But Isaac was just one of the gentlest, kindest, sweetest people, and hold him dearly. in my heart, and so sweet to hear everyone's stories. We connected a few years ago after many years of being out of touch. And I remember this just vividly because it was touching at the time, but even more now that Isaac was so excited that I was playing a music festival with the band Thievery Corporation. And he said to me that, he's like, this is so amazing. You're sharing the stage with Thievery Corporation. You burned me their CD in 7th grade. And my memory is hazy, smoking too much weed my entire life. But I didn't remember that. And I was just so touched that he was connecting the dots and was excited for me. And I think that's, it seems like Isaac really celebrated his friends and really, would love to connect with more of you that knew him more recently. But that was just so touching to me. Didn't want to get into the fact that I wasn't technically sharing the stage with this band. I was actually over on the side, in the middle of the day when no one was there. But I just loved that so much, and it was really touching to hear stories of, Isaac and his love of music. We definitely shared that growing up, and yeah, he was very loved, and I'm grateful to be here with all of you.
I'm usually very good at a microphone. I've known Eileen and Larry and Isaac since he and Travis were toddling around in preschool, and Pat for almost 25 years. And after Isaac died, Eileen and I started walking every week in the bosque and the river up in the mountains. In the river sometimes, it was that low, and along the river, because we felt closest to Isaac there. And we always saw something wonderful to remind us of him. So I sent Eileen this poem, and she asked, would I read it at the celebration? And I said I would try. In Blackwater Woods, Mary Oliver. Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this, the fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do 3 things. To love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To let it go. Thank you. Safe travels, life. So, embrace the love and let go what you have to, and hold on to what you have to. I'm glad you're all here today. Just wanted to say a few things. Thank you for that. There's a moleskin journal over here on the table if there's anything you'd like to share in writing. I wanted to invite anyone who wanted to stay and go for a hike. You're welcome to stay parked in these spots today and go on your hike. We invite you to stay and schmooze and have something to eat or drink. I also just wanted to mention, if anyone's interested, the family has asked
if anyone would like to make a donation, the two organizations we've picked are Outward Bound and the Albuquerque Nature Center. And lastly, if any of Isaac's friends or if anyone would like to have one of his hats or t-shirts, which were very nicely curated by Adam and Travis, to please come up here and gather, and we'll give you one of his items to hold on to. Thanks everybody for coming.